Hey guys, welcome to my channel. And in this video, we are going to talk about emerging world order. And that's the channel of my name of my channel, not channel of my name, but name of my channel. Okay. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? What I'm saying is that whatever is going on around us right now in the geopolitical scenario, let's talk about that. Okay. Now, I'm gonna talk about certain situations and then we go from there. Okay. And this is gonna be a very long video, not a very long video, like 2 3 hour long, but at least an hour long. It's gonna be that. I'll try to keep it short, so just bear with me, okay? But it's gonna be very important and it's going to be very interesting video nonetheless. Okay. So please do like and subscribe and let's get started. Also, if you subscribe, please do subscribe because I noticed that 98% of people who watch my video, they don't even like and they don't even subscribe. Okay, so please do that. It helps me keep going, it helps me improve the content, it helps me in taking things forward as well. So if you like the world order, if you want to know where the future is headed, if you want to know what our the geopolitical scenarios are going to be down the line and where the whole entire world is headed, if you want to know about the emerging world order, the world order that's going to be there for next 200 years, and that's a guarantee. I'm telling you, this is going to be for next 200 years. There will be no superpower for next 200 years. Okay, so if you want to know all that, please do like and subscribe and let's get going. Okay, all right. So first of all, let's talk about what exactly has happened in past few months. Okay, first thing, Venezuela happened. Second thing, Canada, Greenland, Iran, Russia, Ukraine has been, I mean, lots of developments have happened, right? When Venezuela happened, then it was said that, oh, it's for because of oil, and everyone left that whole entire thing at that, right? It's just because of oil. Okay, what does that even mean, that it's because of oil? Just because Venezuela has the largest oil reserves, so does it really mean that it's because of oil? I mean, US has oil, US has all kinds of oil, and situation is that for those who actually know the oil market and those who understand the oil market, they also know that US has surplus of oil that is not even being sold and it's just sitting there in the reserves. It's just sitting there. Why? Because US doesn't want to release it in the market, because if they do that, then it's going to crash the economy, simply because they want the dollar to be stable. That's the only way to stabilize the dollar right now, is to create the inflation. Technically, it is a controlled inflation that we are into. Okay, we are into a controlled inflation where the government is trying to set a new baseline for all of us. New baseline, what does that mean? New baseline meaning that from here on, the minimum oil price will be, let's say, $2.50. Remember the time when oil prices used to be 74 cents, 75 cents. Hmm? And then it moved up to 90 cents, 95 cents, like that, right? And then, but now they're trying to set the baseline that, okay, oil prices will be $2.50, and other things will be whatever the price is, right? And they want to just set the baseline there. Only thing they're not able to figure out is what should be the pay, salary. Salaries are still what was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, right? So, and because of that, everyone is thinking that, oh, we have serious problem. Well, yeah, it is a problem because government is trying to adjust the inflation, but government is not able to create that many high paying jobs. In fact, the job salaries and all that thing has gone down. Okay. Now, yeah, regardless of what current government says, I think that they have no clue about the reality. In fact, even if they did, most of the governments, they go with the data from whatever they get from the unemployment collection. When people go and collect their unemployment, based on that, government says that There is a lots of unemployment, there is employment, all that thing. Okay, anyways, that's not our discussion here today, but I was just talking about it now. So but Venezuela is not like that. Okay, I can assure you this, and we will get to it. Okay, then comes Greenland. Then Greenland was said that, oh, it's because of Golden Dome. I seriously doubt that. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's near the Arctic. Greenland is near Arctic, so pretty much every ICBM, actually any ICBM that goes, it has to go through the Arctic. So if you have your missile defense system that is in the Arctic, then you can actually stop it from there. Now, the problem with that is, my issue with that is that how do you stop a hypersonic missile unless you have the capability to destroy the missile before actually it ejects the payload. Now, how do you do that if you don't even see the missile coming? Yet there are early warning systems and all that, and that is there. But let's say they do it, they somehow manage to do it. But how many of missiles you're gonna stop that with? So is it even a workable option? So is it because that's why Greenland is being the talk of Greenland is because so that they can set up a missile defense system? Actually, I don't even buy that, because NORAD already has facility and defense mechanism over there. Okay, so I really don't buy that. Then comes to Canada. Now, okay, fair enough. The Greenland has the you can put a missile defense system. Venezuela has oil and all that. Question really is, then why? What about Canada? Isn't that what you're doing with Canada? That you are importing almost 50% of your oil from Canada, so that you can keep the economy afloat. So why all of a sudden Canada? That let's target Canada now. Why is that? Hmm? Now then we go to Iran. Why all of a sudden Iran? Now, if you look at Iran, there has been a pattern when it comes to the U.S. administration. The pattern is that in President Trump's first term, he said that he's going to apply lots of sanctions and this and that on Iran, do all that. Joe Biden comes, nothing. And before President Trump, Obama was there. Obama gave them a civil nuclear deal and all that. Hey, let's have a deal, let's discuss this and that. So the question really is that why this is the case? Why all of a sudden now President Trump is going hard on Iran for some reason? Why is that? Hmm? And then we see a peace accord, this whole the peace board of peace thing. Now, board of peace thing is also another of the stuff, something that I will talk about in a dedicated video on that actually, and that's a different discussion. Okay, but all these things are going on around us, but are they really happening because uh, what they look like, or whatever you see, or whatever media is telling you, or is something else? Now, what if I told you, okay, what if I told you that all these things are interconnected? These are not happening in isolation, they are all interconnected, and they all have one and only one goal. Kind of surprising, right? But no, there is no surprise in this thing, because if you start to really dig deep into it, then you will agree with me for the most part. Especially now, look at what happened in the World Economic Forum. Howard Lutnick straight up said that globalization is dead. That's what he said. So my question is that if globalization is dead, then by the definition of globalization, why all these companies are all over the globe? If globalization is dead, so clearly Howard Lutnick and Trump administration has a different understanding of globalization than I do and you do. Clearly, there is a separate understanding of globalization too, right? So, what exactly was that? And with World Economic Forum, things that happen, and with Mark Carney saying straight up that, hey, the old world order is gone. The era of great power politics has begun, something that I predicted like 2 or 3 years ago, that's how it's gonna be, and that's how things have shaped up to be. All right, and this is gonna become more and more prominent as we head towards 2030 and then probably 2035. I think that it will be by 2035 we will see some serious, by that time water won't be murky, it will be very clear. All right, anyways, so that's what we are going to discuss today. And so stay with me till the end, because this is gonna get really really interesting. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do that, okay? Because then it helps YouTube in spreading the video, and all that algorithm and all the good stuff happens. All right, now first of all, let's talk about what exactly is going on. What Let's go back in time. Okay, let's go back in time in 2022. In 2022, what happened? Russia Ukraine war started on February 24th, 2022. Now, if you go dig deep into it, what you find is that on November or in November 2021, European Union and then some Western companies were actually setting up their tent and camps around the mines that are annexed by Russia right now. They were setting up their tent and mine to basically mine for mining purposes. Okay, and then February 24th, 2022, Russians enter with boots on the ground. When somebody enters with a tank and boots on the ground, and they have very clear intent to annex and take the territory. It's that simple. Okay, there was no bombing, there was no all that mumbo jumbo. It was straight up boots on the ground. Okay, so it was properly decided, and it was a decisive uh, special operation. Now, then what happens in March or in by March 3rd, 2022, all of a sudden, immediately, this happens immediately, that Arctic Council cooperation is paused right away. Okay, Arctic Council cooperation is paused right away, immediately. Then uh, uh, then Russians get sanctioned immediately. Such sanctions without any hesitation. The US imposes sanctions on Russia, and hard sanctions. Okay, hard sanctions were imposed on Russia, and Russia immediately moves forward, and Russians go with that. Okay, fair enough. And that's when India decides to started buying oil from Russia in ruble. The rupee ruble trade started. China started to do the same thing. Ruble yuan trade started, and Russia actually started its trade in ruble with 30 other countries. Okay, now a report just came out actually that majority of Russia's economy has been carried by India and China. All right. Now, having said that, then comes October 22nd to 2024. That was BRICS Kazan summit. And in that Kazan summit, it was declared that BRICS pay and BRICS pay demonstration was done. Okay, that there will be BRICS will have its own currency. A fake currency was also shown on the media, social media, and all that. And BRICS pay demo was done to show that, hey, this is how BRICS pay is going to work and all that. And that happened. The talk of alternate currency and talk of BRICS currency started as well. Okay, then comes then let's move to shift our frame from Russia Ukraine and Europe and all that, to Middle East. Israel gets hit around a year later in 2023, 7th October. Israel Hamas war starts. And then Iran gets blamed immediately, that Iran. And then all of a sudden, all over the place, the media started to show how women are being oppressed in Iran, but nobody talks about women being oppressed in Qatar or Saudi Arabia and all that. I mean, for those who don't know, pretty much the entire Middle East lifestyle is like that. Okay, so saying that Iran is actually is oppressing these people or women or something, it's all, we know what it is, right? Propaganda, basically. But anyways, now Israel Hamas war begins, and Iran has to deal with it, and Israel started to hammer Hamas. And Iranian sanctions are I mean, Iran has latest sanctions now. The U.S. Treasury and all are putting all kinds of sanctions like shadow banking, this, that, all the things. But the reality of Iran is that uh, those sanctions really don't matter, because if Iran's economy is pretty much relying on uh, Chinese yuan and Russian ruble for trade purposes, and they're trading in national currencies, then no one cares. And in 2024, Iran joined BRICS. You have to understand that as well. Now, Saudi Arabia was supposed to join BRICS in 2024, and they never said anything that they're joining or not. But in 2026, it is clear that Saudi Arabia is part of BRICS, and Saudi Arabia is a BRICS full member. Okay. Now, these things happened so far. All right. Then we go to China, India, and all that, and local currency deals and all. Hmm? Like I said, India started to buy oil and everything from Russia in national currencies. China started to do that, right? And also, that thing is not just limited to oil. India and Russian trade, actually, it jumps from I think $30 billion to $65 billion. Most of it was Indian import of oil. And they set up the payment mechanism and settlement mechanism in their national currencies in a way that it became faster. They addressed the balance of trade issues. They also addressed the surplus currencies sitting here and there issues too. Hmm? And also in 2024, India and China's relationship was resolved. They basically decided that, yeah, let's shake hands. No talking terms. Before that, it was in complete no talking terms. So Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, they meet in Kazan summit. They shake hands. They talk about it. They said that, okay, let's settle down, let's fix things, and let's move forward. And that happened. Okay. Now, at this point, China, on the other side, China has been working with your ASEAN countries to trade in national currency. China had already launched its CBDCs. India is CBDC is in pilot. Russian CBDC is there in pilot and all that, right? While all this was happening, then crypto took off. Your stable coins started to pop up, and then also a Bitcoin reserve was formed in the US too. Okay. Now, but so far, other countries like other three great powers, they have not talked about Bitcoin at all. Yes, Russia and China did talk about it, but and they actually did a little bit of trade in Bitcoin as well, just to test it out to see how that works as a use case. But seems like that after that they never used it. So but it's something, as a, you get the data, you get all the plus and minuses of it as a proof of concept, right? So conceptually, when you get the all the understanding, then you can use it in future. But that's that, all right? Then then on March 29, 2023, Brazil and China announced a framework enabling trade settlement directly in real and yuan. Okay. And around the same time, if you notice that China also started to trade with Venezuela in yuan as well. And in Venezuela, Russia started to trade in ruble as well. Okay. Now, now let's come to Arctic. Okay, let me share my screen too real quick. Okay. So this way you know what exactly I am talking about. So you have a data. All right. But I will keep switching back and forth. Anyways. So on March 3rd, 2022, like I said, the Arctic Council, uh, it was locked to pause, because before that, Arctic Council was working on development of Arctic mining and all that good stuff. How do we work? Basically, so what happened in Arctic Council is this: Arctic Council, as usual, was a European trap. What kind of trap was that? See, Europeans have this problem that they are so self-centered that they cannot think past their immediate gratification or the short-term goals. They don't have any long-term vision. Okay, that's because they don't have a leadership with a spine. Okay, and they have been relying on America's military might and America's support for so long that they forgot who they are. Okay, and they forgot to actually, they, in nutshell, lost their self-respect. Now, why I'm saying that? See, Arctic Council's primary goal was not to go and figure out how to mine Arctic and how to mine Arctic's natural resources. Okay, Arctic Council's primary goal was to save the climate and stop Russia from using its territory. For those who don't know, 53% of Arctic territory, 53 or more than that, actually, I would say 55% of the Arctic territory belongs to Russia. And rest of the Arctic territory basically gets divided between the rest of the five or six other countries that are there. Okay, little bit here, little bit there. It's like that. That's why they formed the Arctic Council, because 55% was alone Russia and rest was there, and those six basically were trying to, they were like, okay, they probably figured that, hey, if all six of us get together and involve Russia in it, then probably we may contain Russia and come up with some sort of deal. So over there, they started to throw their climate change and this and that mumbo jumbo instead of trying to figure out how to really do something. And that's that. Okay, I'll get to it down the line in the video later on. All right. So, and over there, now let's look into this thing. Okay, one second. So now, so like northern sea route is there, and then through Brent Sea, that is Russia's Arctic uh, trade corridor, right? Or Arctic sea lane. It's not a trade corridor yet. Then there is Denmark state, Iceland, Faroe Gap, all those. These whole bunch of choke points are there that can be actually used to completely choke the trade or anything else through those points. Okay, and then this is northern sea route, and then Canada has a southwest passage. Okay, that's what Canada calls its trade route in the Arctic. All right, and that connects Canada through from the one of the states. I haven't looked at the map yet, but I have made a video on the Arctic. I'll post that video down below so you can look it up later on. Okay, just check it out though. It will tell you everything about all the Arctic choke points and all that, and what's the strategy here. Hmm? So, so all these things are there with the Arctic and Greenland. That's the change that happened. All right, and change happened is that all of a sudden US has asked to build icebreakers. Then Russia Ukraine war was, they were dragging the Russia Ukraine war so that Russians cannot do anything in the Arctic. But now, what happened with the Arctic and the whole Greenland thing is that China said, "Hey, we are near Arctic state, so we are going to get involved into the Arctic with the Russians." And they came up with the idea of polar Silk Road. Now, Indians were like, "Hey, why should we be behind on this thing?" So Indians came up, and I'm just joking right now at this point, is that Indians probably came up with this thing that, hey, we are equatorial uh, Arctic state, so now we are going to join Arctic, and they joined China and Russia and China in the Polar Silk Road project. Now, India, what India did is pretty strategic, and in fact, the INSTC that goes through Iran all the way to Belarus is meant to connect. It's like a trade corridor that's gonna further extend into the Arctic, and then from Arctic all the way to the Indian Ocean, Mumbai, and all that to the Indian ports. And it's gonna go through the Iran as well, to Chabahar port and all that. Okay. And Russia and India, when President Putin visited India in December last year, then they discussed this thing, they signed the agreement, they signed the defense pact and all that. And that was that. So, and then just recently, right before making this video, when I'm recording this thing, so 2 days before, India and European Union have signed a defense pact for Indo-Pacific Treaty. What does that mean? It means that somebody is moving out of the Indian Ocean security. Maritime security requires lots of work. Now, if European Union is going to join India in the maritime security, so clearly European Union will stay out of any troublemaking process. Hmm? So I will get to that later on. Okay, or maybe some other video. But for now, I just talked about Arctic. What happened in Arctic up until now, what happened in Iran up until now, right? And also, Iran also is responsible for China's BRI too. China's BRI comes from all the way from Kazakhstan, it goes to Tehran, and then from Tehran into the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and and the Russians are trying to do the same thing. They all are planning to enter Mediterranean one way or the other. Okay, and Iran through his Shia Crescent corridor, that or the Iranian corridor, a corridor that Iran uses to help Hamas. It goes all the way from Iran to all the Shia countries via Iraq, then to Syria, into Lebanon. Okay, that's why Syria was given to Al Qaeda leader, and they made everybody, Americans who basically, how they don't like dictators and all, right, so they made that guy president over there. For which reason? So that all other countries that are trying to enter Mediterranean through a shortcut and try to create their own supply chains, and their own trade routes, it basically becomes a blocker. Okay, now why it becomes a blocker, but what's the benefit of all that? Hmm? Now I'm gonna get into all that. All right. So first of all, let's talk about and so up until now. Okay, let's reset. Up until now, I talked about since 2022 to till date, what exactly happened around the world, especially in the context of our video. And I'm talking about all this so that you don't get confused when I talk about things later on. Okay. Now, let's talk about what happened in Venezuela first. See, what happened in Venezuela, we all know all the good stuff that happened, right? US military went, they called it drug and this and that, and they entered Venezuela, they picked up Maduro, they're back. And then President Trump said, oh, Venezuela has given us this much oil. Now we are going to use that oil, and then some money will be given to Venezuela and this and that. Wow, such a charity. Now, let's look into the slide, okay? See, what's happening in Venezuela is this, that Venezuela is severely under Chinese and Russian influence. Now, what do you mean? What do I mean by Chinese and Russian influence? Let's look at the data here, numbers. Okay, China buys 95% of the Venezuela's oil exports, often 50 to 80% historically, which is 746,000 barrels per day in late 2025. Okay, to repay 10 to 20 billion dollars in loan. That's what Venezuela, because China had given Venezuela loan. Okay, and because of that, that's how Venezuela repays the loan. Okay, then Russian firms are there. I'm not gonna take that long name, successor to Rosneft. Basically, they had joint ventures interest in fields like Bokron and Pariha actually, with investment expanded to 2041. Up till 2041, these Russian companies are investing over there too. Okay, and which is like 91 million barrels potential completely. Okay, then there are Chinese oil companies involved over there too. CNPC 40% in Sinovensa. Then you have Orenco Orenco Belt, that is 1.6 billion barrel reserve. All these companies are invested over there. Okay, and smaller firms like China's Concord Petroleum 20-year deals for Lake Maracaibo, then targeting 60,000 barrels per day ramp up, and all that thing is there, right? Now, what exactly happens here when US? What US wants from Venezuela? That you have to answer, right? A transactional society, a transactional country like US only wants something in return, by hook or by crook or by force, whatever. Hmm? What US wants over there is change in the oil policies, law policies, oil's law, all that, so that, and a government that listens to the United States. But listens for what? What wants them to do is trade in dollar, not in yuan, not in ruble. Because all these investments are there and Venezuela is sanctioned. Okay. Now, if a country that is sanctioned that cannot trade in dollar and the country whose national currency is just practically non-existent. I mean, I made the whole entire video and I don't even know what is Venezuela's currency. I didn't even care to look it up. Simply because it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter why. Because if Chinese are investing, Russians are investing, ruble, yuan is there. And Venezuela is already sanctioned to use dollar. Then what do you think Venezuela eventually will go and do? Venezuela will use what? Ruble and yuan. Russians are the top food suppliers, food exporters, and other things. Russians can provide that security for Venezuela, food security. Chinese are the manufacturers. They can provide anything else. In return for what? In return for Russia, it becomes a strategic point, and for China, it is a strategic point as well as its currency point, and a market, of course. So when US goes and takes Venezuela, then US basically is saying that, hey, we don't care whomever is governing your country, whomever is running the show. That's why Darcy is running the show right now. She was the vice president. Now she's the acting president at this point. Okay, the goal is very simple: to make sure that yuan and ruble they don't become the primary currency of trade for Venezuela, which means that it's trying to stop the rise of petro yuan and petro ruble, just the way petrodollar was there, especially in your neighborhood. Now, if you're planning to manufacture, you clearly know that you cannot manufacture in your own country and provide cheap products and compete in the international market. You cannot do that without collapsing the dollar. So, if you cannot do that, then how are you going to balance that out? You're going to balance it out by asking the countries that are in your neighborhood. In American continent, the Latin America, Mexico, all these countries, in Caribbean and all that, you can ask them to manufacture and you buy from them only under one condition, that is trade in dollar. Don't go and trade in any other currency. That's what you want. And that's the story behind Venezuela. That's the only interest there. Because anybody who understands the oil market, I can guarantee you, I mean, I can go and give you a whole entire lecture on oil pricing and all that thing too. And I can tell you this, that finding an oil well somewhere does not actually take your economy to a whole another level. It just doesn't happen. There are lots and lots of nuances that are involved in it. Only thing, if a country finds an oil well or something in their on their soil, Okay, like for example, let's say if India finds oil reserves on their soil, only benefit India will get is that they will become energy self-reliant. They won't have to worry about importing it from any other country. May not have to worry. They can choose then, right? Nobody can put pressure on them to go that, oh, we will tariff you, we will sanction you, this and that, all the mumbo jumbo. That is, you maintain your sovereignty this way if you are a country like India. So oil technically does not do that because you still have to follow the international market, how oil pricing is done, right? And if you cannot keep your oil pricing competitive to the oil that is being sold by other competitors in the market, if your break even price is too high, then how are you going to sell? So clearly, it's not about the oil. Why? Because Venezuela has very, it's a super heavy crude, okay? It's extra heavy crude. And because of that, it becomes expensive to distill in the when you refine it in the refinery, okay? And extra heavy crude, I mean, you can refine it all that, but it takes more work. You have to add more chemicals. You have to, you know, add tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers into the supply chain to provide all the extra stuff that adds to the cost. And if you're not a country like Saudi Arabia, where just drilling the well costs you $8 to $9 per barrel, then you want to minimize all that damage. This is why ExxonMobil CEO, he was the only guy who spoke the truth. He said very clearly that Venezuela is uninvestable, and he was speaking the truth. Why he was shut down by President Trump was not because President Trump likes people to talk good about him or this and that. No. President Trump was simply trying to hide the actual intent of going after Venezuela. A man who is a billionaire, he has built his empire. You're telling me that he doesn't know about profit and loss. He doesn't know where to invest and where not to invest. I mean, he knows it. But certain things like national security and certain things like saving your own currency, it takes precedence over anything else. So it has to be done. Okay. That's what the Venezuela story was all about. Now let's go to Canada. Okay. Now, what happened in Canada? Canada, Canada started basically when President Trump and Justin Trudeau had this talk, and where Justin Trudeau ran his mouth and he said that, oh, we might as well become 51st state and this and that. And President Trump actually joked about it. Yeah, why not? You will be the governor of it. But and actually the Democrats media, they blew it out of proportion and turned it back on President Trump that, oh, look at this guy, he just doesn't respect anyone and this and that. But the whole conversation was that it was brought up by Justin Trudeau, not by President Trump. But anyway, that's not the point. So what is the intent here? The intent here is this. If you follow the geopolitics closely, you notice that Canada just started to open its market for China. Hmm? And there are information that lots of Chinese companies are buying all these houses, apartments, and all those things over there. Hmm? Then also, if you notice that Canada has removed all the tariff on Chinese electric vehicles and all too. So basically, Canada is saying that, hey, we are opening our market for China with open arms. And they have been doing it for quite some time. But now, especially in Davos, actually, in the World Economic Forum meeting, they just openly said it. That old world order is dead and great power politics is taking over. What does that mean? What it means, he's saying, is that if we don't rely on US anymore, and we are going to rely on other great powers for our trade and for hedging our interests. That's what he was saying. Now, why Canada? Because if Canada is going to China with all that, then how hard it will be for Canada and China to say that, hey, let's trade in national currencies. We will take Canadian dollar from you and you'll take yuan from us, and we do that. That's it. We make payment in yuan and you make payment in Canadian dollar, and that's that. How hard will that be? Why? Because considering the Canada's economy, the current state of economy in Canada, Canada can definitely use things to lower the inflation, things to make things cheaper. How they're going to do that? They are going to do that by getting rid of the dollar. Payments in dollar, that is. Meaning that wherever it is necessary to pay in dollars, so be it, that's fine. But if not, that is US dollar I'm talking about. Let's use our national currencies. Why? Because there is a fees of 5%. Probably it's higher now, considering all the economic situation and all. Probably that fees is gone up. That fees has gone up. It's not 5%, probably it's 15%. Who knows? But there is a fees. Now that fees can actually become billions of dollars per year. And it's a no joke. I mean, I have looked into the data, and it can become billions of dollars. Like in the capacity of, I would say, $2 to $3 billion per year if you're doing lots of trade with the country. So if you want to shave off that $2 to $3 billion or $5 billion, considering China and Canada are not going to do some small trade, right? So if you're going to shave that off, then hey, it can bring down the lots of things. It can help with inflation and all too. You can do something else with it, right? So it won't be that hard for Canada to do that. Now, some of you may say that, oh, but it's not going to happen. How do you know that it's not going to happen? Or some may say that, oh, that's not, this is too far fetched and this and that. Are you going to convince the national security advisors and the Secretary of State that this may not happen? I mean, just few years ago, up until 2010, nobody cared about Panama Canal. And then all of a sudden, oh, we want Panama Canal. So what happened then? And just 3 or 4 years ago, everyone wanted to crash the Russian economy by sanctions. Oh, sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. It's like sanction is God or something. No, you didn't do anything. Anybody who understands the dollar recycling will tell you that every time you sanction a country, you are only shrinking the dollar recycling radius. That's about it. That's all you do. That radius shrinks, meaning that you're going to recycle less and less dollar in the international market. And when you're going to recycle less and less dollar in the international market, what does that mean? It means that you cannot print that much money either. And now, when you have printed loads of money already without caring about the international market, how it's going to be absorbed, what happens? You basically crash your economy. And that's exactly what happened during the COVID. What happened during the COVID? US printed almost $4 to $5 trillion. Okay. In 2020, COVID started. By 2021, US had already decided to print the money, at least $4 trillion. They said that, oh, let's give it to people. And in 2022, Russians started the war because they knew exactly what's going to happen. They knew that they will be sanctioned. And when they will be sanctioned, then that's going to actually shrink the US economy. That's exactly what was going to happen. And if other countries start to buy oil and other things from Russia in the national currencies, then what's going to happen? It will shrink the global US economy even further. The dollar recycling even further. Why do you think President Trump had to use the tariffs right now? Simply because he knows that he cannot print the dollar any further. They are now slowly and slowly they are planning to inject the money. But they still don't know how they are going to inject the money without that money being absorbed in the global market. That's the problem. Okay, so if Canada Okay, now if Canada decides to trade in national currencies with China or any other country for that matter, with Mark Carney's statement in the World Economic Forum, I mean, I don't think that that is even far fetched actually. So, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to hurt the dollar, and it's going to bring yuan up or any other currency up for that matter, whether it is ruble, whether it is rupee. But other three great powers, their currencies are going to go up in the trade, in the international market. Right now, that was the story with Canada. Now let's talk the uh, about Europe and Russia. We talked about Europe and Russia earlier, hmm? and we talked about certain things, right? Now, European Union planned basically what? A Russian LNG, that they're going to phase out a Russian LNG by December 31st, 2026. But it doesn't seem like that they're going to phase out anything. Those were just the plans. Okay, those were old data. Then Russia has already shifted 85 to 90% of BRICS settlements and all that. They're trading completely in rupee, ruble, rupee, yuan, and all that. Okay. Now, but there are a few other things that are happening. I mean, Russians are still selling natural gas to Europe, and Europe has no other place to go to buy cheap LNG. They were buying it from US, but that is expensive affair. So since that is a very expensive affair, so they cannot keep doing that for too long. So only way they can manage all that is by going back to Russia, and that's why you see that all three, actually three or four, the major countries, the bigger, largest economies or largest countries in the European Union, like France, Germany, and all that, they are saying that, hey, I think we should, that they think that they should improve their relationship with Russia. And when that simply means that there is a doubt within the European Union that they don't know how to deal with Russia actually. They had their own plan, climate, and all that BS they did in Arctic before Russia Ukraine war. And now uh, Germany is going back to having nuclear power plants. These countries, they talked about this whole climate and this and that. And then all of a sudden, now they're deciding to go back to nuclear power plant. They complained about other countries using coal and all that thing. Oh, coal, nuclear is bad. Let's go with renewable energy and this and that. As soon as AI showed up, so now all of a sudden it's not renewable. Let's go with AI. Now, what happened here in this whole entire scenario? See, the entire and I'm just gonna give you a brief thing here. Okay, I'm not gonna go too deep into it. Okay, just brief. That what happened is that in the World Economic Forum, officially what they did is they said that the globalization that started with the oil, the globalization that started with the oil is ending. That's what they're saying. That's the hidden word that you got to read between the lines. They're saying that the globalization that started with oil, that globalization is dead. Now the globalization will be of technology. We are in the fourth industrial revolution, and here we are talking about what? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, and all that. And to do that, whatever is necessary, they will do. This is why Elon Musk was there. This is why Germany and all these countries are deciding to go back to their nuclear reactors, especially the smaller modular reactors. Now think about it. Whatever happens around you, that represents what? That represents the flow of our world order, how where the world is headed. You have to think about it. Okay. Now, so why all of a sudden climate and all those things came into picture? The climate and all that thing came into picture, the renewables and all that, right? That's because they wanted to end the oil based globalization. When in 1973, when the whole thing started, um, And 1975 G7 was formed. The primary goal of G7 was to control the oil, to control the oil-based globalization. And World Economic Forum was formed what in 1973, I believe, or 1976, one or the other, or I can't remember, but it was somewhere early 1970s. Okay, and it was formed around the same time when the US actually removed the pegging of dollar from the gold. And in those days, actually, if you go look closely, the members of the World Economic Forum were most of the oil companies. Now, who are actually the main speakers and all those in the World Economic Forum? It was mainly technology companies. Elon Musk was there. Juan Feng was there, the Nvidia guy, right? All these people were there. That's what it means. So they added the whole climate change and everything, all the mumbo jumbo BS, basically, to walk away from the dollar, from the oil, and move into something different. Why? Because slowly and slowly, the whole controlling the oil and all that became obsolete. They realized that it takes lots of energy and lots of money to actually control all that. And that's not going to happen. Why? Because it was backfiring on them. The only way they could do that was, first of all, find alternatives to something, energy resources, and then figure it out later on. And whatever the nail in the coffin was, it was hit by Russia in 2022. That tells you that Russians actually have better grasp over the flow of the world order than anybody else. And because of Russians, I believe the Chinese also had the good understanding of the flow. And this happens with most of the civilizational countries like India, China, and all that. They understand the flow of the world order because historically they have seen those things happening over and over. Okay. So now what happened in Europe is that because of the tariff fights and Europe straight up announcing that old world order is dead, meaning that the oil based world order is dead. So there is a fight for Greenland. There have been threats about the Greenland and lots of other things, right? Now the Europe's main concern is that what Europe's concern and dilemma is that, hey, uh okay, we can fight Russia, and if Russians are making threats, but Russians are not doing anything. But we have another threat at this point that is simply saying that let's take Greenland and is going to take the Greenland. Then what are we going to do about it? So the whole what are we going to do about part is concerning them. And that is changing the whole entire politics. And US economy is not that big at this point. Why? I mean, yeah, they may say that it's 29, 30 trillion dollar, whatever is being said right now. But I seriously doubt that it's gonna last longer than too much. Okay. And this is not me talking crap about it. I'm just being a realist here. Okay. The reality, whatever the reality is, yes, it's gonna happen, but it will impact me and everybody else too. But I hope that things will be fine, whatever. But that's going to hurt NATO. So NATO has to figure out their own thing. Okay. US gave them a basically soft landing that, hey, you guys need to figure out your own funding, your own defense. We cannot do that forever for you. Okay. So they did all that. But now if European Union is like, okay, if we have to do all that, then how are we going to support our economy? Only way to support their economy is to take care of their energy requirements and give up on Ukraine. But how do they give up on Ukraine gracefully without uh, without feeling all that disgrace and everything, and feeling the hubris, right? The hubris of the defeated, that you talk all that thing and then ultimately you just lose. So so they have to do that. Eventually, what they are going to do, they will improve their relationship with Russia one way or the other. Sooner or later, they are gonna do that. And when that happens, then Europe will simply start paying in euro, and Russians are going to make payments in ruble, meaning the euro ruble payment will again start. It's just the matter of time. It's not if, it's matter of when. Why? Because of the Arctic. If you notice, the Arctic Council is there. That's where we are going next. We are going into Greenland and Arctic. Okay. Up until now, what I talked about Venezuela. I told you how it is connected. I talked about Canada. I told you how it is connected. Now we are getting into where we are talking about. We talked about Europe, right? Now we are talking about Greenland. Greenland, simple. If you look into the data, then you see that Russia's sheer footprint is 53% of the Arctic Ocean coastline. Most of it is by Russians. The biggest Arctic population, Russia has 2.5 million people living in its Arctic, and about nearly half of the Arctic's population, which is this. You can go into Arctic Council page, you can look it up. There's a whole website of it, and there's like 50 some page PDF. I have read the most of the PDF actually on this whole thing. Eh? Russia has leading Arctic Council. This that before Russia-Ukraine war, and if these are the countries: Kingdom of Canada, Kingdom of Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the United States. Now, United States always had a problem with Russia wherever they have joined hands with Russia. Okay, now if European Union when actually let's not say if it's when European Union decides to get in good books of Russia, when they overcome their hubris, then what do you think is going to happen with the Arctic Council? Is Arctic Council still be able to keep Russia out of it, or what? What's going to happen is that all these Arctic Council countries will simply be like, hey, yeah, let's do that, okay, because European Union needs energy. European Union needs some work, and only country that can actually provide that kind of support in the Arctic is Russia. Russia is straight up Arctic superpower. Nobody is anywhere near. That's like if they have almost 40 some icebreakers. What you think? You think it's a joke? No. So so what do you think is gonna happen if you are a national security advisor, and when you see that, oh, Russians and European Unions may improve their relationship, and if Denmark and all that, they are all already in the Arctic Council along with us, then what do you think is going to happen? Greenland. That's what's gonna happen. Okay, Greenland. Canada is already out of hand. Okay, Canada is already going China way. China is in the Arctic, polar Silk Road. Greenland. So out of what are the countries? Let's look at the thing again. Kingdom of Canada, Kingdom of Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and this. Out of that, two of those countries, they're like, okay, yeah, we are good with the Russia. We have no problem. We are good with China. We have no problem. Arctic Council will expand. And if Arctic Council expands, then Greenland, if you are a national security advisor, you will fear it too. Okay, so this whole NORAD joint commands, all that thing is not gonna matter. That's why US wanted Greenland for itself, so that in case Arctic Council and all that good stuff expands, something else happens, some changes happen in the Arctic, then still they can be on, they don't become irrelevant. Okay, and it becomes a national security threat, at least in their eyes. I don't know how you can have a national security threat when you have 7,000 nukes. So clearly it's not that kind of conventional war kind of threat. The threat is to what? To the dollar. Why? Because if Chinese get there and Russians get there, they all get there, and they're already trading in euro and yuan, or euro and ruble. If you look into the Arctic Council once again, these are all European countries. If they're already trading in their national currencies, then dollar will be out of place in the Arctic too. So what do you think is happening here? That's what's happening. Now you tell me that all these things are not interlinked. There is one more case that I have to talk about. Okay. If you are still with me, please do like and subscribe. Okay. Today I'm giving you geopolitics 101. Okay. Now let's look into this. So with Iran, we talked about Iran, right? I told you how Iran is. Iran situation has been that Chinese have their BRI going into Mediterranean. India has INSTC through Russia, and that's gonna connect directly through Arctic. Okay, that's called North-South Corridor. Now, if you go study it, you will find that North-South Corridor has 3 points. After first, it goes from Mumbai to Chabahar in Iran, and then from Chabahar it has three options. Okay, it can go through Caspian, from Caspian to Moscow directly, then St. Petersburg to uh, uh, Belarus, and then into Arctic, whatever. And then also another is through Azerbaijan, and then through from Azerbaijan to Moscow and all that. Then third one is Armenia and all that. Okay. Now this is why Armenia and Azerbaijan issue was so called resolved, or peace was introduced, so that Azerbaijan and Armenia don't actually take care of your INSTC. But that's not gonna happen. All right, and the chances are that that will be handled later on. But overall, INSTC is there, BRI is there within Iran. Now you have sanctioned Iran again. Now going back to Venezuela situation, you sanction a country and tell them not to use dollar. Where do you think they're going to do? In the world, in a multipolar world where there is no hegemon, then what do you think is going to happen? What do you think Iran is going to do? Iran, chances are that Iran will open. China will allow the swap lines, yuan, and whatever the Iran's currency is. Their peso, I can't remember what it is. I'll have to check. But Iran and China swap line, their currency swap line, ruble and Iran's currency swap line, rupee and Iran's currency swap line. India and Iran have traded barter too. How hard and how much of impossible does it really seem to you is going to, you think is going to, I mean, you let me know in your comments. Actually, I would like to know this thing. But quite frankly, based on the studies and the research that I have done, it's not that far-fetched actually. So if Iran does that, a major producer, natural gas producer, and all that. If Iran also starts to do that, then what do you think is gonna what other currencies are going to take off? Once again, rupee, ruble, and yuan, right? And this influence does not go in limit. It's not limited to one thing. Look at Saudi Arabia. Look at UAE. India and UAE already have started to link their payment systems. India has already asked its central bank to link uh, its payment system to the BRICS countries' payment system through CBDC system. Okay, meaning that India's CBDC payment system is going to be linked to other BRICS countries' payment systems, CBDC payment system, whether it is China, whether it is Iran, whether it is Russia. And that's what other countries are going to do that too. India has already made this official announcement. And Saudi Arabia is part of BRICS too. So what do you think is happening? What's happening is this. I will tell you what's happening. Okay. That what's happening is that whatever is being done, this is the last ditch attempt. This is America's last ditch attempt to save the dollar. That's what's happening. To save the dollar and to delay the rise of Petro-Ruble, Petro-Yuan, and Rupee. That's what's happening. So whatever you see around the globe right now, that's what it is at the end of the day. And all the policies and everything else that was made in the past for a oil-based economy, depending on one particular fiat currency, that part is going away. Now the economy is going to be run on fourth industrial revolution. This is the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution. This officially, this World Economic Forum, what you heard today in this meeting, was very simple. They said that this is the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution and the oil based globalization is dead. And what we are going to see is the AI based, quantum computing based, the technology based world order or technology based globalization. What does that mean? What do you think is going to happen when we say technology based globalization? It simply means that central bank reserve currencies, that is CBDCs, the digital currency, we will see more and more of Bitcoin, crypto, Bitcoin, stable coin, blockchain evolution, and CBDCs and all that. So we are going to see that all that happening down the line more and more. Meaning that before this, in the era of dot-com boom, the internet came. What happened? E-commerce rose. E-commerce basically promoted what? E-commerce promoted the petrodollar more and more, and through which the payment systems increased. Right, the digital payments started. Now what we are entering is the digital settlement as well. Through where what? Through CBDCs. That's what the fourth industrial revolution is all about. And that's what World Economic Forum actually announced. Okay. Now, before I close, actually, let me explain a little bit more about the whole supply chain and all under the Iran thing, because I think over there, when I said certain things, argument seems a little bit of weak, on the weak side, right? See, to explain further, I will tell you, it's not just INSTC or BRI and all. What happens with these actually these supply chains? When these supply chains are there, okay, then the insurance provider, that is Lloyd Insurance, that is the only insurance that is there, okay, you have to subscribe or buy a plan of that insurance. How it does not work your like your usual insurance, okay. Now you have to understand how, and to do understand this whole thing, you have to know how sanction actually works. One day I will make a video about that as well. It's like tier 1, tier 2, like that. There are layers for it, for each and every sanction, okay. And all those layers were decided in 1975 when G7 was formed. That's how the oil based globalization was controlled. Why I'm saying oil based globalization? Because few countries were there, they were called OPEC countries, and they were selling oil to other countries, okay. But now, since the era of this whole nationalization, the patriotism, nationalistic things started, then whole entire that oil based globalization went out of the window. Countries were like, hell with this. I mean, we are selling the oil under this thing, trying to keep this thing alive, and we are getting sanctioned. Why would we even believe it? So they said, hell with it. Okay, coming back to this thing, why I talked about Lloyd Insurance and all that. See, Iran's importance increases because all the supply chains and everything goes through Iran into the Mediterranean. That's the alternate route that cannot be sanctioned. And if and when you're doing all that, then very soon, India is going to start its own fleets, start its own cargo fleets and all that. And that will be insured by the governments of Europe, governments of India, government of Iran, government of Russia, China, all these. What do you think is going to happen? Right now, the Lloyd Insurance and all that, they provide, there is only one. Lloyd actually controls pretty much 90% of the thing. 10% is the government insurers and all that, okay? And those 10% are called shadow fleets, okay? So the Lloyd Insurance does everything in dollar. Okay, all the ports that are around the globe, they go and automatically register to that thing, that insurer and the insurance provider. They go, all these ports and the cargo ship services, they go and register to it, okay, and they make the payment in dollar. Now if these supply chains, the trade routes are created that are sanction free, what do you think is happening here? You are avoiding a complete dollar based insurance policy, insurance mechanism, or a shipping mechanism. You're walking away from the whole entire thing. So what happened? That's why Iran becomes important. Okay, Iran is the key over there. Okay, now, now if you look at why, because if you really want to understand this, cross question the Strait of Hormuz. Why Strait of Hormuz is so important? Ultimately it ends up in Iran. There is no other way over there. So why it becomes so important? You have to ask that question to yourself. Okay. Now coming back to this whole entire thing, that uh, that's what the world order is right now. Okay, and so this whole entire thing that's happening right now is basically if nicely put, it is just to give dollar a soft landing. Okay, dollar from here on will become an optional currency, not gonna be a reserve currency. Slowly and slowly you will see that transition happening, and as the CBDCs rise, BRICS connects all its all BRICS connect countries. They connect they interlink their payment systems and settlement and all that. Then this is gonna speed up, and eventually, uh, dollar share probably will come down to probably 30%, 35%. People will still keep that as a backup, but other than that, the era of petrodollar is over. That's why I said emerging world order. Okay. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in another video. Take care.